പോയിട്ടല്ലോ നമ്മൾ
It is after 7 p.m. over there. Are we to start?
Yes, we will start in some time.
Okay, great. And I'm waiting to be co-host so I can...
Yes. Once it is done, we can start actually.
Okay.
Deepak ji. Shakuntala madam, you are on mute.
So we will start now. First, let me introduce you and then you can start with your presentation, sir.
Thank you.
Yeah. Namo Namaha. Swagatam, Punarapi Hardam Swagatam. I welcome you all in the special lecture, which is a part of 2-day international seminar on yoga, theory and practice. This session is on the Yoga Sutra, the teaching of heart. We have distinguished speaker for this, Dr. Graham Schweik. Professor Graham Schweik is currently Professor of Religion and Director of Studies in Religion at Christopher Newport University in Virginia, and also distinguished teaching and research faculty at the Center for Dharma Studies at the Graduate Theological Union in Berkeley. Dr. Schweik did his graduate studies at the University of Chicago and Harvard University, and earned his doctorate in comparative religion from Harvard. His scholarly specializations are Hindu traditions and Vaishnava Bhakti, the philosophy and history of yoga, love mysticism, and the comparative theology of religions. He has been recognized several times for excellence in teaching, including the annual Alumni Faculty Award for Teaching and Mentoring in 2013, and has been a regularly invited lecturer at the Smithsonian Institution in Washington, D.C. for over 14 years. Dr. Schweig has over 100 published journal and encyclopedia articles, chapters of books and reviews of books, and several books, the most well-known of which in Bhagavad Gita, the beloved Lord's secret love song. So he has a long list of publications. The CV which he shared is having literally 77 pages. So we all should definitely study that. It is so inspiring. So Dr. Schweig has just completed the world's first comprehensive concordance for the Bhagavad Gita, forthcoming publication from Columbia University Press, and he is currently working on his translation and interpretation of the Yoga Sutra to be published by Yale University Press. Here, I would like to highlight that Dr. Graham Schweig has been a student of many traditional teachers of yoga. He has been a practitioner of meditational and heart-centered yoga for over 50 years. Alongside of his personal yoga practice, he earned his doctorate from Harvard University in comparative religion with a specialization in sacred Sanskrit literature, focusing on yoga and bhakti. Graham Schweig has been conducting yoga workshops and offering seminars and lectures around the US and Europe for over 20 years, and has been an invited speaker several times at the Yoga Journal conferences. Graham Schweig, along with his wife, Catherine, is a co-founder of the Secret Yoga, for which he teaches workshops on the yoga of deep study of sacred yoga text, philosophical foundations of yoga, exploring deeper dimensions of meditation, Sanskrit for yoga, the Upanishads, the Yoga Sutra, the Bhagavad Gita, and workshops on many other important themes. In his upcoming book on Yoga Sutra to be published by Yale University in 2023, Schweig has discovered layered realms of the heart, hidden expressions of Bhakti and Shakti, and the Sutra's raw conception of divinity and grace, when interpreted with elements from Vedanta, Upanishads, Bhagavad Gita, and Bhagavad Purana. So we have such a distinguished speaker and yoga practitioner as well. So I heartily welcome you, sir. And we are really grateful to you that you have agreed to our invitation. And now I request to you to start with your presentation. Thank you.
Thank you so much to you and the other organizers of this seminar, and for your generous invitation to present. And So I shall begin by really taking you through a number of slides during my talk, so you can see what I'm talking about and even what I'm saying. And I want to sort of bring all of you into the kind of discovery that I've made with regard to something so essential to the Yoga Sutra. So now I'm going to share my screen, and let's see here. Here we go. Excellent. Okay. I hope all of you can see my screen easily. Okay, here we go. Okay, so the title of my talk today, the Yoga Sutra as a Teaching of the Heart. This really, I think, would strike most of you as unexpected, as frankly it did for me, when I discovered this dimension of the heart, but what is really meant by the heart. So I'm going to show you something of my process of looking at this and making and sort of coming up with this. Yes, as the introduction said, this is in preparation for my book, coming up with Yale University Press, and it will be called The Yoga Sutra, Patanjali's Concise Teachings on Perfect Union. But what is my thesis today? My thesis is simply the primary focus of the Yoga Sutra is on Chitta, which I've concluded refers to the heart, but even more so, the phrase, the whole heart. Notice the hyphenation, the whole heart. What is the whole heart? The whole heart is, in the simplest terms, is the fully developed loving energy. I keep having to admit people, okay, someone else will do that, great. The whole heart is the fully developed loving energy coming from the center of the total person. It is the very seat of the soul. It is the loving energy that flows to the self from within and from without. It is the loving energy that comes from the self to all living beings, to all reality. And it is what carries the soul beyond the state of embodiment to the realm of the eternal, into the arms of the Supreme Beloved. Okay, let me move this down a little bit so we can avoid some of the, here we go. Okay. Now, most of you here know how complex the corpus of sacred Sanskrit literature and the sacred literature of the different traditions, the different Dharma traditions in India. And this is actually a simplified chart. But all I'm trying to show you here is where we're located. The 6 darshanas, which include the Yoga Sutra, are so central to all of these sacred texts, because as one of 6 of the darshanas, the Shat darshanas, these darshanas, as you know, are like a toolbox from which these different traditions, the Vaishnava, Shaiva, Shakta traditions, draw for really expounding upon their vision, their sacred visions. So the Yoga Sutra is one of those toolboxes within the Shat darshanas, and this is where we're going. Now, unlike the commentators of the Yoga Sutra that are traditional, the Vyasa Bhashya, the Vachaspati Misra Bhashya, Vijnana Bhikshu Bhashya, and so on. These are the standard commentators of the Yoga Sutra. But what I've tried to do is to look at the Yoga Sutra in a new key. I've tried to show that when we invoke dimensions of the Vedas and the Upanishads and Vedanta, which really give the Shat darshanas their whole purpose, and later Vedantic schools, this axis here is the very axis from which I'm drawing for my interpretation and commentary. So I'm not relying on the traditional commentators of Vyasa and Bhikshu and Vachaspati Misra. And so this is a little bit of a radical departure. At the same time, I see it as not a radical departure because it is so aligned with Vedanta and with the Bhagavad Gita, which is often considered part of Vedanta as Gita Upanishad and so on. So this is where I'm working. So it begins as the self, undeveloped in its limited state, conditioned by the world. At the same time, it also includes the true self proper. It potentially can develop and expand into the intimate presence of the divine reality that embraces the self from within, from the very core of the true self. And it is the space within the energy flow of the heart, the Upanishads, within which the self is embraced from without by the divine manifestations of absolute reality. So let me take you to, in some sense, the beginning. Where does this, start? Let's see, where am I? Here we go. Okay. The Sanskrit word chitta is a key word for Patanjali's Yoga Sutra, and perhaps even the most important concept of the work. The word chitta appears in more instances than any other word in the sutra. It is also an idea that is developed and focused upon in the sutra more than any other. It is the famous second sutra text in which it is introduced. When translated most literally and simply, it reads, the second sutra text reads as follows. Of course, the sutra goes as Yoga Chitta Vritti Narodaha. Yoga is the chitta when its turnings are uprooted. It can also be translated in more of an English-friendly way. Yoga is the uprooting of the turnings of the chitta. Here, Patanjali launches his work with 4 spare words, albeit richly endowed terms, each word which will appear in key places throughout the sutra. Thus, the words yoga, chitta, vritti, and nirodha of this key aphorism ideally are translated and rendered in such a way as to anticipate the essential content of the sutra. Now, this is, we're not going to go through this in detail here, but simply understand that chitta appears 21 times throughout the sutra. Vritti appears 16 times in modified forms, and that's vritti, and then nirodha appears 7 times. The question is really, yoga is the chitta. How do we translate it when its turnings are uprooted? What then, how should we understand chitta? How have others understood chitta? Now, technically, it's a past passive participle, which means to perceive or to know, to understand, to be aware or conscious of. So the word chitta could really just mean consciousness. And some translators have understood it as such. The word chitta, of course, comes within a family of words that can refer to different phases or levels or layers of consciousness, ranging from all the way from chit to chaitanya. So there is a whole sort of family of permutations in which we find the word chitta that can be considered, which really means it can refer to these different levels of consciousness, layers of consciousness. But the word chitta in the Sanskrit lexicon really refers to these 4 things, or can refer to these 4 things: thought or perception, intelligence, intellect, or understanding, the heart, mind, the soul, spirit, the animating principle of life. So you can see there's, even in the strictest lexical source, that these are 4 very valid ways of understanding chitta. But what does Patanjali really invoke by the use of the word chitta? Well, there are all kinds of translations in the West. Of course, consciousness has been used. Mind has been used. Mind is a very popular translation of it. Thought is also another popular translation. The thinking principle, mind stuff, the mind stuff, the mental capacity of thought, ordinary awareness, etc. David White, in his book on the Yoga Sutra, counts as many as 22 different ways of translating chitta. However, while each of these primary meanings from the Sanskrit lexicon can easily be seen as constituent senses of chitta, and thus valid translations, by themselves, each translation offers an incomplete treatment of chitta, I would proffer. Why did Patanjali use the word chitta? The word utilized in Kashmir Shaivism, in the Vaibhashika system, in the Yogacara, a Mahayana Buddhist system, and perhaps most significantly, the Sankhya classical school of Indian philosophy, most commonly, the word is simply translated as mind. But it should be noted that each of these three most utilized translations of the word chitta have corresponding words in Sanskrit that perhaps more directly carry their meaning. For example, mind best translates manas. Consciousness more directly translates chit, and thought easily translates chinta. When each of these common translations can be easily seen as constituent senses of chitta, and while they each are certainly valid translations of the word, by themselves each translation offers an incomplete treatment of chitta. So I'm really focusing on this third definition given in Apte's excellent dictionary, where the words heart and mind are offered. And it's interesting how they appear in the same third definition, both mind and heart. But the word chitta draws from the definitions just described, as they reveal different phases of consciousness, experience, and awareness originating from the mind. But as we shall see in key passages of the Upanishads, Vedanta, and the Bhagavata, the meaning of heart, considered the seat of the intellect from Apte, opens up new possibilities for the understanding of and translation of the word chitta. So, my claim is that these other translations, in some sense, according to the Upanishads and Vedanta, are contained in the word heart. And then, of course, although the word heart most directly translates the word hrid or hridaya, it is able to contain the meanings of and even go beyond the other three translations for conveying the rich meanings Patanjali intended for the word chitta. So even the word heart has a more direct translation than chitta. It's hrid or hridaya, as we all know. So that's why I call it the whole heart, because something is being contained here in the word chitta that includes just an extraordinarily complex array of factors. And this is what I wish to try to communicate with all of you today. So I talk about how the word hridaya itself has many meanings, which itself can mean soul or mind, as the seat of thought and intellectual operations. From Mona Williams and Apte, the heart, the soul, the mind, etc. So even the word heart itself can be a complex word to work with. And then even in English, the word mind lacks the deeper element of centeredness that the word heart carries. The heart regarded as the center of a person's thoughts and emotions in the Oxford English Dictionary. The word mind lacks the depth and essence of self that the word heart carries in English, though each can convey the sense of thought and even consciousness. The latter certainly carries the sense of awareness, but adds to that the experience and the feelings that come from deep within, emotion, and that go deep within, emotion. So you can see that it gets rather complex. Now, I'd like to also show here that the word chitta appears throughout the Bhagavata at least 80 times. 40 of those times could really not be translated any other way other than with the word the heart. So chitta can shift around depending on the context. But 40 of those 80 times in the Bhagavata, throughout the whole Bhagavata, really requires the translation of the word heart. Otherwise, it really doesn't work. So this is, to me, is very telling. Let's see. And then there are at least 10 different Sanskrit words, other than hrid or hridaya, that translate as heart. And here they are: antar, ashaya, guha, guhashaya, diya, chetas, manas, and these others: marman, sattva, kutastha, atman. So you see, this is not an easy topic to navigate through, right? So, you know, we go to the word hrid or hridaya, which means heart, but look how complex that word becomes. So the word chitta is definitely engaging the idea of heart, but it is utilized in the Upanishads and other sacred writings that will help us complete our understanding. If we go to the Gita, we can see, of course, the word heart being utilized, as in hridaya, vyadarayat, in 119, shattered heart, faint-heartedness, hridaya daurbalyam, and then, of course, the self is seated within the heart of the divine is seated within the heart of everyone, and so on. What is this heart? The mind can be stopped from within the heart. All of you can recollect Arjuna asking Krishna, the mind is more difficult to control than the wind. And yet Krishna says it can be stopped from within the heart. So this heart is something that remains mysterious, but so ever present in all of these sacred texts that we look at. The divine is seated in the heart of everyone, and so on. More in the Gita. So what I would like to show you is how there is, of course, the biosomatic heart. Okay, there's obviously the biological heart, but there's the affective psychic heart. This heart of that governs the sentient beings. Sentient meaning beings that feel, that experience feelings and affections. And then there's the etheric heart, something that is very subtle, that that the soul sits on the heart. The Atman sits on the etheric heart in the pranas, and so on. The sushumna and the whole subtle body of within the embodied state. So really what we're talking about is the chitta, or the whole heart, which begins in this conditioned embodied state, And we start with the human condition, and certainly Patanjali acknowledges the human condition in his sutra. But it moves into the practice of yoga as really the awakening of the heart, the awakening of something at one's core. It's the awakening of the chitta, which is the energy of the heart moving out from the Atman. And then ultimately there's a transformation of the self, and then finally absorption in ultimate reality. So this conditioned whole heart, we begin with the conditioned whole heart. And I would call that the meso dimension of the heart. The biosomatic heart, the affective psychic heart, and then the etheric heart. So this matter of the heart includes the physical, the subtle body, and even something even subtler in some sense than the subtle body. But it includes more. According to the Upanishads and Vedanta and different passages that I have found in sacred literature of ancient India, we're talking about a macro dimension of the heart and the micro dimension of the heart. And that is why I call it the whole heart, because what comes from the chitta, what is possible within the chitta, from the chitta, and to the chitta, is something that goes way beyond the particular person, but something that connects with ultimate reality, which is the macro dimension of the heart, and the way the ultimate reality is contained within the heart, and the micro dimension of the heart. And that has to do with the true self and the supreme self that resides within the heart, the Antaryaman, the indwelling Lord. So I talk about obviously the biophysical heart, but the second meaning can be the center of a person's thoughts and emotions, especially love, compassion, and loyalty, even one's mood or feeling. Thus, the heart as the seat of feeling and emotion, which pervade a person through the primary subtle psychoenergetic centers distributed about the spinal column from top to bottom. The psychological heart is comprised of the affective or feeling dimension of the human being. And I'm going to show you through some charts these psychoenergetic centers and the relationship they have to the Anahata chakra, and how it is the probing within this center of one's being that leads to the macro and micro realizations of the whole heart. The third sense can be applied more generally to anything when it is applied to the central or innermost part of something. If applied to the human being, it certainly can speak to the very deepest place in a person. And that, of course, is referred to as the heart in these different ancient texts. So we come back to the Yoga Sutra text itself, and we find this short 3-word text. Hridaya, or I should say Hridaye in the locative case, Hridaye Chitta Samvit. So look at this. So the word Hrid or Hridaya is utilized in juxtaposition to Chitta. So this could seem like it would be tautologous. So how can you have heart? But actually, from deep within the heart, one's whole heart becomes fully realized. So this is perfect, ladies and gentlemen. What I was delighted to come across this when I came to this understanding of the whole heart, which included the macro, the meso, and the micro dimensions of the heart. Because what Patanjali is saying here is that it is, from within that heart that we have, if we probe more deeply, we then move into the realm of the whole heart. Oops. I didn't mean to shrink the text here. Let me get it back here. Okay, there we go. Or we can translate it more thoroughly from deep within the heart and what flows from and to it. One can realize that it is in one's whole heart that consciousness dwells, the very place from which it expands. Okay, so I have my little subject here, and I'm, placing the chakras, the 7 chakras. And all of you are, of course, completely familiar with these. And then, of course, here we talk about the yogas of attainment, really, which have to do with Tantra, the sort of outer limbs, the outer sort of practices of yoga, which would really be more attuned to a karma yoga or tapas in the light of Kriya Yoga, Patanjali's Kriya Yoga. Really, we're talking about tapas. And here's where the energy kind of goes out. And that's what the arrows indicate. The energies are kind of going out. And this is, asana yoga and so on. But then there are the yogas of transcendence, of moksha, the inner limbs, the inner process of yoga, where one rises up through the chakras and then beyond the body, beyond the state of embodiment, into a state of moksha. And then what we realize is that in the conditioned state, there's a kind of stasis. That is to say, a standing within the meso dimension, which contains the conditioned state of the human being. But the yogas of the heart, or pranidhana, love, is the innermost samadhi, which is filled with radiant affection, the radiant affection of bhakti. This begins to be realized by pursuing the depths of the heart, the anahata chakra. And of course, we all know that anahata is referring to the pranava omkar. And this is what we eternally have a connection to, but we, in the conditioned state, we are blinded to it. So Patanjali is awakening us to this indwelling Lord, the Ishvara Pranidhana. So here's where we're moving deeply into the heart. And this is where the macro dimension is realized, where the heart puts us in touch with all of reality. Within the heart, we have the connection to all of reality. Did I make that up? No. This is right there in various Upanishads. And this is how ecstasy, this is really the dynamic of ecstasy, or ecstasis, the standing outside oneself. Ironically, by going so deeply within oneself, one stands outside oneself, and that is what we understand as ecstasy. So this is where I think the Yoga Sutra is going. And this is what I think this idea of the whole heart is most valuable in translating the Yoga Sutra. And finally, I'll just close and open up for any comments or questions. This important Bija Sutra text at the start of the Yoga Sutra. Yoga is a transformation of the whole heart as its conditioned turnings become uprooted, so its pure turnings can take root and flower. Notice, if you will, my sort of dual translation of vritti and nirota, the negative and the positive. It's a double entendre that I've discovered here, because the whole heart it's about moving from the conditioned state to the liberated state, where one's pure turnings, you are no longer bound to the conditioned turnings, but to the pure turnings within consciousness. And I get this later from the 3 forms of the Nirota, Naroda Sanskara, the conditioned state, the Naroda Chitanvaya, the enlightened state, and the Naroda Parinama. The word Naroda appears 3 times, and it supports my translation, the double entendre, because Naroda here is used in the conditioned state and in the enlightened state. So the second Bija sutra text must reflect this, because it is the flowering from that sutra text that the rest of the sutra comes. And then, of course, the transformed, Naroda Parinama, the transformed state. So there is endless discussion we can have on this, but I will, in the interest of brevity and time, I will simply say thank you and open up for any comments or questions. I believe we have a few minutes left, but that is up to our esteemed host.
Sure, we can take question answers. Please raise your hand if you have any question.
I must assume from no raised hands, Shakuntala, that my thesis has been so convincing that nothing else needs to be. Oh, okay, I spoke too soon.
So I would like to ask one question, that generally Nirodha is translated as obstruction. That obstruction of vrittis. So what meaning do you understand of the, because I have seen in the last slide, you
Yes.
take it as transformation. So how Nirodha can be understood?
Yes. Nirodha, if we take the word apart morphologically, of course, Ni means deep and Rodha means to expand or to flower. So
Okay.
I take it as a kind of positive meaning, as Patanjali really indicates in that one sutra, that the Nirodha Chitanvaya. This is where the chitta really reaches an enlightened state. So Nirodha is the deep, the going deep and flowering, like a bulb. You plant a bulb, it spreads roots, and it flowers above. So I see this as a kind of flowering of of yoga, and so that's why that's how I come up with that double entendre meaning.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. So Shobha Sahasrabuddhe, please unmute yourself.
Hello, sir.
Yes.
I have 2 small questions, please.
Yes.
Number 1, on this entire scenario, on this backdrop, how would you explain Dvandvana Bighatah, Dvandvas, going beyond the Dvandvas, that
Yes.
concept? And second question, you had shown us a slide in which 4 meanings of the word chitta have been shown.
Mhm.
Okay. Thought, intelligence, heart, mind, and soul, spirit. And you have taken the basis as the 3rd meaning. Am I right?
Yes.
Yes. So
Yes.
randomly, is there a chance of experimenting with another option and coming out with something different? Especially intelligence attracts me. So do you think there is a possibility of toying with that idea? Thank you. Very
good. Okay, just quickly, because we don't have a lot of time, but Dvandva, as we know from the Gita, and the world, this world is filled with Dvandva and dualities and conflicts, yes, yoga is about embracing this world, as even Krishna himself asks his reader to do, through the Virata Rupa, the Vishwarupa, in chapters 7 and 9 and 10, the I am declarations, that there are piercings of the divine even in this world of Dvandva. And as Patanjali says, this world is meant either for our further conditioning and bondage or for our liberation and freedom. And so Patanjali is just ingeniously, really, is promoting a psychological process by which we can rise above the dvandvas, but not resisting them either. As far as the word intelligence, according to the Upanishads, intelligence is there within the heart. That I have found we didn't have time for me to show you all the different passages within the Upanishads that explains that the intelligence belongs to the heart, mind belongs to the heart, all kinds of feelings, perceptions belong to the heart. It's amazing what you find in the Upanishads. So that's why I try to go beyond mere intelligence. And of course, we know that buddhi is typically translated as intelligence. In my translation, I call it the faculty of discernment, to more clearly convey to the reader what intelligence is, and so on. So anyway, that's my
Okay.
quick
Okay,
response.
sir. Okay, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for your questions. Yeah.
We will go to another question. Sudarshan, please
Yeah.
ask your question.
Didn't we already do Sudarshan? I think we're on to Palak Sardana.
No, sir. No,
No?
sir. No, sir. No, sir. You're
Oh.
not done.
Oh, we're not
I
done.
have
Okay.
this. Yeah, yeah.
Sorry.
So, yeah, sir. So, sir, I had a question with respect to the Hridaya Chitta Samvita, which you were talking about, that
Yes.
the entirety of the Chitta is residing in the heart. Okay. Is this also in parallelism with, I think, a statement in Yoga Tattva Upanishad, which states that there is a, lotus in the middle of the heart, which holds your entire essence, and the Omkar, that is a Pranava, can actually charge up that lotus and take you towards the higher consciousness. So does it have parallelisms with any of the yoga Upanishads, sir?
Yes, indeed. And that is why I have this illustration here. You see, there is the 12-petaled lotus of the Anahata Chakra. And then I even superimpose it over the Ras Mandala with the 12 figures of Rajagopikas and Krishna. Now that's quite a leap. I didn't have time to show you how I get there, but there is the verse in the Bhagavata that speaks about a Rasotsava Sampravritta, the perfect turning forth, right? Sampravritta Gopi Mandala Manditaha. So it's so amazing how the different shastras really are forming layers of understanding of this phenomenon of the whole heart. It's quite amazing. So yes, I would agree that this lotus of the heart is key to understanding the depths of what the Yoga Sutra is talking about. Yeah, thank you for that.
Okay. Next, Palak. Please ask your question.
Taking off the mute is sometimes challenging. If you press the space bar on your computer, you can automatically.
Hi. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Good morning to you.
Yes. Good morning.
I actually, my question is more related to the practical dimension of, your theory. So in practical terms, can your theory manifest in the chakra system with activation of Anahat? And if yes, then does one get to feel that the vibration in that region during meditation?
Very good. Very good. What do I say here? Something that I think responds to that. Let's see here. It's, in my experience in going into yoga teacher trainings and so on, which I'm constantly invited to doing, it's very interesting. Why do people practice yoga? And I'm talking about the serious practitioners. I'm not talking about the people who, go to tone the body, which, we all know asana yoga can do that beautifully and so on. And way before it was done in the West, there have been all kinds of, ascesis and, incredible attainments of different contortions of the body and so on. But we all know that asana is meant in preparation for a meditation, dhyana. But we also know from the Yoga Sutra that performing asana itself is a meditation. It's about one's finiteness in relation to the infinite. And Patanjali expresses this so beautifully and eloquently later on in the Sadhanapada. Now, given that, serious practitioners, we all come to yoga ultimately because of the way we feel. And I'm not talking about, more superficial feelings. I'm talking about the way we experience things and feel things in a very deep way. And this is this affect this really comes from the affect of the heart. It's different than simply going beyond the Sahasrara chakra or the Brahmarundra and trying to escape existence. It's about developing a relationship with all of existence, and that is what we feel and experience. And that's even what beginners can begin to feel and experience, and that's why people keep coming back to practice yoga. So I really do think, and I love the fact that you raised this question. It is such a deep experience like no other. Even science has discovered that there's a part of the brain that is activated only when you meditate.
Right.
Right? So it's amazing. This dhyana, we have yet to really appreciate what is contained in this whole heart. It's ironic, in the Bhagavad Gita, it's talked of the Atman is obviously the pure self, the true self, the eternal self. The subtle covering of it is Ahankara. The grosser covering of that is the Buddhi. Even more, going from subtle to gross, you've got the Manas, you've got the Shashendrayani, right? And you've got the Sharira, or the Deha. But where's the heart? It's stated that the Lord is residing within the heart. But where's the heart? We just talked about the Atman. We talked about the Ahankara. This heart, this business of the heart is so mysterious. It's within the Atman, but the Atman resides in the heart, along with the Paramatman. So what is this heart? What is this whole heart? That's what I've been embarking upon, trying to understand and convey in this presentation of the Yoga Sutra. It's
Thank
funny.
you so much. This is just so amazing. And, just one observation that when you were answering the question, I could see
Yeah.
it's coming from your heart, because your eyes were closed and you were like completely meditative. It was flowing from you. And I'm sorry I cut you short, but, I think there's one more participant who wants to ask. A very quick, request that,
Yeah.
is there a way to be in touch with you, like one-on-one? Can I write to you? Do you have an email ID that you would like to share?
Yes, you can write to me. Let's see. The best way to write to me is Graham, Graham, at secretyoga.com.
All right. Thank you so much. Thanks.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, there is one more question by Alka. Please unmute yourself.
Or press the space bar if you need to. There we go.
Hello, I want
Yes.
some more information about innermost samadhi.
Okay, say again.
More information or examples about innermost samadhi.
Oh, the innermost samadhi. Okay. Well, the innermost samadhi, of course, would be the near bija samadhi. The samadhi without any seeds. You know, at first, it's funny when I was translating the Yoga Sutra, I was thinking, well, seeds, this is a really kind of a metaphor for, you know, the subtlest distractions, the subtlest imperfections. But Patanjali means seeds. Why? Because those seeds, even within the exalted state of Sabbija Samadhi, those seeds can start growing something with the Savitarka and Savichara. The seeds of those can start growing away from one's samadhi and distracting one from samadhi. This is why or how sometimes very advanced practitioners can be lost to worldly distractions and just be practicing yoga or teaching yoga in ways that are even harmful to practitioners or engaging in criminal activities. They get distracted, the bija, the seeds. So the real samadhi, the innermost samadhi, as Patanjali explains it, is the near bija samadhi, in which all of the limbs, the ashtanga, are perfected. Then there's the perfected stage of these 8 limbs. And that is different from the practical, engagement of the 8 limbs. And I explain all of this in my upcoming translation. But the innermost then really speaks about kaivalya and dharma mega samadhi, that one realizes the relationship of everything to everything else, to all things to everything. And that's why dharma mega, a cloud, an all engulfing cloud of dharma, is the description of this kaivalya. So it's quite beautiful. And then, of course, the real shocker is the last few words of the Yoga Sutra in 434 in Kaivalya Pada. When he talks about chitti shakti, all of a sudden. Now, most translators are very sloppy about it, in my opinion. They just say, spiritual, energy or something like that. Chitti is the feminine energy of Chit. It's the goddess. We're talking about something divinely feminine. Chitti Shakti. And those of you in Sanskrit, you know that Shakti is of the feminine gender, and I mean, this is quite like a surprise ending, almost, by Patanjali, but a magnificent ending. I think it really talks about what Krishna speaks about, Brahman as the womb of creation. It's there, chapter 14, verse 3.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for that comment. Question.
There is one more question by Dr. Sridhar Iyer.
Yes.
Please unmute yourself, Sridhar.
I'm not asking any question. It was an interesting paper, especially the last part. Chitti refers to the goddess. So for that, I would just like to add, in the Devi Mahatmya, among all salutations, the first one is actually Ya Devi Sarva Bhuteshu Chitti Rupena Samskrita. Namastasya, 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 Namo Namah. So
Wonderful.
Really, so it was really
Wonderful.
interesting. Yeah, I just wanted to add, it was really wonderful paper. Thank you so much, sir.
Oh, Dr. Iyer, I really appreciate that. I'm going to, as soon as I'm through with this call, I'm going to go, madly to my bookshelf.
You do have to see that how the goddesses manifest in different forms. And the first Ya Devi Sarva Bhuteshu Vishnu Maya, it begins with Vishnu Maya, it begins with Maya, then there is the form of consciousness or understanding, whatever you call it, Chitti. She is there.
Yes.
So it is really wonderful. Do please go through that.
Yes, beautiful. Thank you so much for that. Really, thank you.
I think Ramakrishnan has one question. Kindly unmute yourself, Ramakrishnan ji.
Am I being heard?
Yes,
Yes.
yes.
Thank you, and for a wonderful explanation. I would like to actually bring 2 points. One is the word Hridaya. You explained that Hridaya is the seed. It is actually comparable to the Supreme Self. And you see the word Daya. Daya means compassion. It is a location of compassion. Hridaya is anything that is the receptacle of compassion, the love, out of which the entire creation emanated. The Supreme Self felt bored by itself, as it were, so it had to love itself. So it separated itself from itself so that it can love itself. And that's how creation happened. And there is one aspect of Hridaya, I wanted to bring it to the discussion table. The other one is
Yes.
Pranidhana. The Pranidhana, you interpreted that actually as love. Now, in the conventional interpretation, the meaning of Pranidhana is surrender. Both mean the same thing because you love God, you surrender to Him. So you humble your ego and you surrender everything to Him. So that can also be interpreted as Pranidhana, so that the impact and the incrustations of the ego is reduced, gradually
Yes.
reduced. Okay. And the last
Beautiful.
point,
Mhm. Yes.
Chitta, I think some with, you said, right? Can you
Yes.
repeat that for me? Hridaye chitta samvit, right?
Yes, yes, that's it. Hridaya Chitta Samvit.
Yeah. Now, what actually to me it occurs that the chitta here, I interpret it as the embodied soul, and the embodied soul is free from all incrustations of matter from Prakriti. It happens only in Nirvikalpa Samadhi, not even in Savikalpa Samadhi, because in Savikalpa Samadhi there is a witness consciousness, and when it graduates to the Nirvikalpa Samadhi and then on to the Dharma Mega, the entire personality, the embodied soul, is totally consumed, as it were, in the Hridaya, which is the Supreme Self. So you can interpret it from the Advaitic point of view also.
Yes, yes, beautiful, beautiful. Quick response, if I may. Excuse me. The word pranidhana, I translate in my translation. You saw it on the illustration there, but my actual translation is really very much morphologically derivative of pranidhana, and I'm partly informed of this translation from the Upanishads themselves, moving deeply into the space within the heart. Beautiful. Moving deeply into the space within the heart. The Upanishads speak about this Hridayakasha. Hridayakasha. Beautiful, beautiful. Now, quickly, Hridaya. Very interesting to hear your interpretation of Hridaya. I once recently asked myself, why are there two words, Hrid and Hridaya? Everyone just translates each one heart, but why the redundancy? Well, actually, there is no redundancy. Hrid means heart, and of course, the word heart is a cognate of Hrid, right? The English cognate. Hridaya, the aya means the flow of the heart, the energy, the flow of the heart. Beautiful. And this is what the chitta is. It's the flow of the heart. So, I'm studying Sanskrit for over 50 years, and suddenly, just last week, I'm realizing the difference between Hrid and Hridaya. I mean, it's something we take for granted too easily. And Hridaya, the flow of the heart, how beautiful is that?
Yes.
Anyway.
The heart is the embodiment of love, and when the love flows from it, the Hrid becomes Hridaya. That's what you're saying.
Exactly. Yeah. Beautiful. Beautiful. Thank you so much for your comments.
Thank you.
I think it was wonderful, very methodical and profound lecture by you. So I think we will be very keen to read your book, which will throw new light on Yoga Sutras.
Thank you so much, Shakuntala. Honestly, the editor at Yale thinks I'm dead because I'm 2 or 3 years past the deadline because I keep having more and more realizations, and I can't submit the manuscript until I feel confident that I've realized as much as I can. So I will get it out there. Probably in a year and a half, it'll be available.
Yes.
Thank you so much for the opportunity also.
Yeah, thank you so much. So Dr. Madhavi, are you proposing vote of thanks?
So so it was a very intriguing lecture and very insightful also, because there's a new meaning which has come up to the in front of the scholarly world, which is chitta, and chitta doesn't mean mind, but chitta means heart. And it is also not just heart, it is whole heart. So on behalf of the Department of Sanskrit, University of Mumbai, I wholeheartedly thank Professor Graham Schwegg for delivering such an interesting lecture on Yoga Chitta Vritti Nirodha. So your lecture on the Bhagavad Gita also some years back in our department.
Yes, I remember you. Yes.
Yeah, it's equally interesting. So the experience, we renewed the experience which is there, and Professor Schwegg, you will be always close to our heart. Whenever you will
Thank
be
you.
arranging seminars and conferences and special lectures. One thing which came in my mind was to share with Dr. Shakuntala, which I'm just telling you, that we have a paper on translation studies, and a lecture from you on translation would be something which is which we need from the bottom of our heart.
Oh, yes. I would love to talk about the trials and tribulations, the ecstasies and the, pain of translation.
Yeah. And so how the journey moves from Chit to Chaitanya. So it was a very beautiful journey, and it was also, I would say that we have our PhD students. So it was a quantitative research and a qualitative research, both. So so we came across references where Professor Schwegg said that so and so word occurs so many times. So that type of research is also very essential while undertaking the study of any concept. So, Professor Schwegg, thank you very much. On behalf of the department, I thank the audience also. There are 84 listeners. So, and it's truly an international seminar because people from across the world are listening to this lecture. So, thank you once again to Professor Schwegg and also the participants. I thank the university authorities and the technical staff support which they have given us in spite of being late. Here it is now almost 8:15. So in the evening, so I thank them all, and we'll meet tomorrow at Shakuntala Madam at 9:30. We'll meet tomorrow for the next session, and we will be having more interesting sessions tomorrow also. So till then, Swasti Punardarshanaya. Namo Namaha.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.